Hi there and welcome to this poetry course. In this course we're going to create something really beautiful. Beautiful poetry that inspires and appeals to humanity of your readers. What we're not going to do is we're not going to do things like political poetry, so we're not going to touch on social issues, but the kind of poetry we'll write is the kind of poetry that hopefully gives your readers or listeners magic butterflies. It really inspires them and really makes them see something really beautiful. So the poetry is going to be inspiring. At least that's our goal. Now, the structure of the course is we're going to start with some basics like metaphors, similes. We're going to look at some really good examples of classical poetry, and then we're going to start writing your own poem. I'll write a poem side by side with you. We'll start with a one line, then we'll go to a haiku, which is 3 lines, then we'll go to a 4-line poem. So it will be kind of baby steps. So by the end of the course, the idea is that you'll have your own poem. But most importantly, I feel that throughout the course, I'm going to show you what gives your reader or listener a special feeling. You know that feeling when you come across different art, music perhaps poetry, and some lightning strike happens and you're like, wow, I just saw the world in a different way, or I just felt something and I identified with what I read, and I can't explain what I feel, but I feel feelings, right? That's, I think, the most magical thing that arts can do for us. Not all arts do it. All arts mediums can do it. You can get it from music, from dance, from painting, but not all art pieces do it. And I feel that the art pieces that do this to us are the most special ones, that give us different perspectives, that make us feel feelings, that inspire us, that take us to different worlds. That's really the biggest goal of this course. So you may not write a poem, but if you see and eventually make something that has that effect on someone else, then I feel that this course will be very successful, because that's the most magical thing there is about art, is that transformation of feelings and emotions. So that's really, really, really the goal of my goal as an instructor in this course. That's what I want to convey to you and show you how I try to do it. And of course, when you set out to do something like that, there's no guarantee it will happen. It's a creative process, but at least we'll try. So that's the course. Welcome, and let's begin. In this video, let's take a logical approach and examine how do you evoke emotion? How do you get people to feel that emotional high when they're listening or reading your poetry? And we're going to use science and philosophy to understand what exactly is happening in your reader. And another thing we're going to tackle in this video is this common thing people repeat and say, art is subjective, everybody experiences art differently. And to a point, it's true, but to a large point, it's kind of one of those fallback things people just repeat because they don't want to think very hard, but it's philosophically a very unsatisfying statement. We're going to get past that and we're going to dig a little deeper. It's really important to understand what are the underlying truths and mechanisms so that we can use them to enhance our work. So first of all, when we come in contact with any art as a consumer, we only have our past experience with which to approach a new piece of art. The reason we're starting with that is if some piece of art, let's say, references some historical or specific event, and maybe you've never heard of this event before, maybe it's not a part of your history or culture or whatever, you're not going to be able to get a lot out of this piece of art. Also, if you're listening to music and it's classical music, but maybe your ear is just not attuned to those kinds of sounds, you're just not going to be as ready for that new classical piece of music as someone who's been listening to it for a long time. So right away, there's an issue of being ready for it. As creators, we just have to understand that part of the subjectivity of experience is that everybody comes to your art from somewhere different. But at the same time, across cultures, we share so many things in common. Our core feelings and emotions, many of them are very, very similar to each other. So it's not like we really can't adapt. And we'll touch on that later in this video. But for now, we have to start with the idea that art does require previous knowledge of experience, and the prerequisites are not just in our understanding of the world, but our mood in that moment. Like, let's say we're stressed out at the moment. We're not going to have the patience or the mindset to listen to classical music or to appreciate some fine art. We're just not in the headspace in the moment. And that's a big part of subjectivity that we can't really solve, but we should understand. But let's say, because as people, we do share so many things, let's say our audience can identify with our art and they are ready. That means they already have that prerequisite in their mind and in their emotional past, in their emotional memory. So we just have to tap into their emotional memory. Now this is science, because now we're dealing with people's brains. So what you have to do is build an image in your audience's mind. And it doesn't matter which art medium you use. Music, painting, writing, dance, they all work differently. But when they're effective in evoking an emotional response, they build some image in that person's mind, maybe something that evokes their memory, some image that evokes further associations in that person's mind. If they don't see what you want, if that association doesn't click, they're not going to internally associate it with their experience, and your piece of art will fall flat. It won't inspire them. It won't evoke an emotional response. So if they are ready to receive your art, but your art just doesn't do it for them, a big part of it is the quality of your art. Some people, like wine drinkers, some people just drink any wine because, it's wine and they like to be drunk. But some people like fine wine. So different people will look for different things out of the quality of your performance or art. And in the art world, no matter what medium you use, you have to be in the top 1 or 2% of all creators, because art has to be exceptionally good to really resonate with someone. So that's just something that's set in stone. Like, you're not going to inspire anybody with a mediocre performance or creation. But having said that, let's actually look at what's happening inside the brain and how the magic can get created inside the brain. So we feel emotions and think in images before we think in language. The part of the brain that thinks in language, that processes a lot of logic, developed after many parts of the emotional brain we have. And of course, many parts of our brain deal with emotions, but many parts of our brain fire before the logical part of the brain fires. And so what that means for us as art creators is that our audience has an emotional response before a logical response, but a logical response is coming. So for example, if you're doing music or if you're presenting on a stage, the audience has made an emotional first impression to the sound, to the look of things before they decided, do I like what's being presented? Do I like the lyrics? In music, for example, the lyrics are very important, but they're secondary. The sound has to really appeal first. And this is really an oversimplification, but actually you don't need the complexities of it. Really, we just need to know that, hey, the emotional connection and the emotional response is first. Then we rationalize about what we're experiencing. So that's the science behind it. You need to create that image as an initial response in your consumer with both imagery and presentation, but also the language and the writing. And if what you did builds that image in your consumer, they're going to experience an emotional response, which is exactly what you need them to do when they come across your art. If there's no emotional response, they're most likely going to ignore it. If there is an emotional response, there's a chance they might love it. It's going to be a rich experience for them. They might become a fan. That's the difference. So now let's look at what's universal between us. More or less, in the modern world, we have the same understandings and very similar sensibilities. And our emotional responses are also relatively similar. So if you evoke relatively universal imagery, that makes people recall and feel relatively common emotions that are not basic, but the ones that we all feel, then you're on the right track. This is actually why, if you're genuine and if you're vulnerable in your art and you're not showing off and you're not saying, I'm so great, I'm so strong, blah, 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 but show a little bit of humanity, that is going to be something that other people recognize. That human element that you have, that they have, they'll sense it immediately. We're human, we're weak, we're sometimes insecure, we're sometimes fearful. We have a very wide spectrum of emotions, all of which need to be explored. And when you meet people on the level of their humanity, that's when it's special for them. So in my poetry, in my music, and what I would encourage you to do is to meet people and connect with your audience on that very human level that makes it special. And that's going to be my exercise for you in this class. Think of which human experiences and emotion do you want to share and explore and connect over with your audience. And that is going to be the poem that you're going to start writing in this course. You may not finish it, but at least we'll write one together as the course goes on. And if it's truly meaningful to you in a vulnerable, special way, it will be meaningful to other people who connect with you on that special way, which is one of the really beautiful things of art, is that you connect with people on a real level. So for now, the exercise is just to think about what human topic you want to write about, and we'll explore that in the later videos. But generally, after this video, you should have an idea of what it takes for people to have an emotional connection with your piece of art and understand that at least at a logical level, and what it really takes for your audience to connect with your work on a very special level. In this video, I want to give you a few strong guiding ideas for how to approach your writing with every poem, with every line. Kind of test yourself. Ask yourself, are you following these principles? So the first idea will be creating a slice of life. And first I thought that this was a quote by Anton Chekhov, but then I realized it might be by Jean Julien, both great writers, so I gave them both credit. It doesn't really matter for us, because for us we want to understand, what is this slice of life? Well, if I tell you that something happened to me that immediately sparks a reaction like, oh my God, I know this feeling, I know this situation, I've been there too, then I just told you something about a slice of life. Whereas if I told you something that doesn't feel really real, it feels overdone, maybe fake, maybe just not accurate to real life, you're not going to have that reaction. So when we create things, when we write, we have to create a slice of life. Sometimes in individual lines, sometimes in our whole work. The more you create that recognizable little piece of life, the slice of life, the more it will resonate with your readers, listeners, or however people consume your work. So that's one thing to aim for. That's kind of a target to aim for. Are you hitting on a slice of life? Is your stuff real? Now, the second idea is art is not what, but how. Now, what does that mean? And this is by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He's another great writer. You see, it's not what the topic is, but how well it's done. You can write about any topic, but you can write a bad work or a good work. So the subject matter doesn't have to matter. Sometimes subject matters are grotesque. Sometimes they're unattractive. Sometimes they're off-putting. Sometimes they're offensive. The idea here is that if you do it well, all of these can work. If you don't do it well, none of these will work. And in the comedy world, comedians face this all the time. There's this big debate like, what about poop jokes and fart jokes, right? Those are some of the most basic, lowest common denominator, not really adult material, but if it's done well and it works, most comedians, they don't frown on it, they don't stay away from it, but their goal is not the subject matter choice, but how brilliant can they create a joke about it. And it will be the same with you. How good can you create your work? And if it's good, the subject matter wouldn't really matter as much. And secondarily, it will appeal to a wider audience. So it's how it's done. The higher the quality, the higher the appeal. And then the third idea is show, don't tell. This is kind of like if you're saying, I'm scared. Well, don't say I'm scared. The listener, the reader, they can't feel that if you just say I'm scared. But if you paint a picture, like you're in a dark forest and there are sounds and you have no flashlight and it's really dark, but you see some light far away, maybe it's a wolf, maybe it's the eyes of a wolf. Now you're seeing a pack of wolves' eyes, right? They're pursuing you and you're running, but you see them running after you. Okay, you just are painting this world, and maybe I didn't do a great job just explaining it just now, but generally, if you create worlds and images that show what you're trying to convey, the listener or the reader, they'll feel that much more, and it will touch them much more because their own emotions will start working. So these are the three large ideas that all works of writing more or less have to adhere to. You don't have to have all of these, but the more of this you have, generally the stronger your writing will be. That's why I wanted to share these with you in a separate video. Now let's introduce metaphors, which are very powerful tools in poetry and actual everyday speech and prose writing. They're everywhere, and they enhance our speech, communication, and writing. So first, let's introduce metaphors. The definition is it's a word or a phrase that represents another idea in a non-literal way. And if it's confusing, we'll do some examples shortly. So let's keep going with this definition. So usually, the reason we use these is to add additional or hidden or surprising elements to the original idea, with the desired effect of enriching the meaning of the original word or phrase and give that original word or phrase richer life that can spurn imagery, imagination, and evoke emotion in the reader or listener. So let's look at a few examples to clarify this point, because this definition may be a little bit of a mouthful. It's a lot to process, but actually metaphors, they're simple to understand once we see them. So let's look at them. Here are some examples. We'll take one from Shakespeare. The world is a stage, perhaps one of the most famous metaphors there is. Now, is the world an actual stage? Of course it's not. But when we say the world's a stage, that has its own kind of a meaning. It's non-literal. It gives new ideas here. It creates new imagery immediately. And also, of course, it's unique and original, and it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. And it's very effective in describing things, because imagine if you had to actually describe how the world is a certain way and blah, blah, blah. It would take a lot of words. But this way, we see it because it's a really well-made metaphor. We feel what the meaning is. The world's a stage. For most people, it's really easy and natural to comprehend that idea from just a few words. But of course, this is the master, Shakespeare. He's the best writer ever. So most of us can't create such amazing, simple, but brilliant metaphors, perhaps, but we can start with something simpler. Let me share with you something that I wrote. So this is from one of my songs. It's like a pretty love song referencing Michelangelo's painting The Birth of Adam, where, that there's that famous moment with God and Adam touching their fingers. And the line in the song says something like, "My caress paints new Sistine chapels along your back." And so the Sistine Chapel is the place where that painting is. So it's kind of like the caress paints Sistine Chapels. Does the caress paint? Of course it doesn't. It doesn't paint anything, right? Let alone paintings that are historical, that are in Sistine Chapel. So really this enhances the caress, right? So if you were to use regular words to describe how nice a caress is, you can say the caress is soft and it's sensitive, and it's another thing, and it's another thing, and it's a really boring, non-poetic description. Whereas for people who know that painting, Birth of Adam, and for people who know what the Sistine Chapel is, people are like, wow, you immediately understand what's happening here, and it gives this caress an otherworldly quality where you just cannot describe it in words, just with metaphors. That's why you use the metaphors. But let's get away from my writing and let's get back to the masters. So another powerful metaphor is the world is your oyster. Again, this is from Shakespeare. It's immediately clear what's happening here, right? Kind of the world is a place to play. You kind of own the world. It's yours. There are many ways to interpret this metaphor, but they're similar. But the idea is that it's a very pretty, immediately imaginative way to phrase things. Again, if you were to describe this in regular words, it would take many sentences to accomplish the very same thing that these 5 words accomplish. And you probably would still not get anywhere close. So having gone through these, let's look at some more examples of magic created with metaphors by other masters. So here's another one that I actually really love. Love is a smoke made with the fume of sighs. There are actually 2 metaphors going on here. Again, it's by Shakespeare. He's the best. I love him. And I actually used this line in one of my original songs, and I kind of worked his line in there just because I liked it so much, and it's in a different song, not the song that I had mentioned earlier. But let's look at it closer. Love is a smoke. Love is not a smoke. It's not even a physical thing, right? But here we see, okay, love is a smoke. That's fine. Made with the fume of sighs. Okay, now fume of sighs. Sighs don't have fumes, but imagine so many sighs. People being sad that instead of love, they have this smoke. And the smoke represents this idea of like, there used to be something, it burned, there's no longer something, right? So love is a smoke. It used to be there, it's gone. And the thing that burned are the people's sighs, right? Is really devastating metaphor, really amazing line. Just picture it, let it sink in a little bit. When I first came across this, I was like, oh my God, wow, Shakespeare is good. That was my reaction when I first saw this, and it's still my reaction, and I can't get over how imaginative and creative and just amazing this line is. And also, real to life, like people who have felt heartbreak, they can identify, which is also so important, right? People can picture this for themselves from their own experiences. Now let's look at another example. Conscience is a man's compass, from Vincent van Gogh. Now, Van Gogh is not a poet, he's an artist, but he's still a genius. So let's look at this. Is conscience a physical thing? No. But does it lead a man to certain directions? Yes. Does it lead a man to good directions? Hopefully. And that's why this is a powerful metaphor. Conscience is a compass. Now let's look at another one. From Pablo Picasso, another great artist. Art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. And we've all felt the dust of everyday life, right? The boringness of everyday life. Now, if I say the boringness of everyday life, it's not very poetic, but it's quite creative to say the dust of everyday life, because we can still clearly picture what he's talking about, but it's in an interesting way now, in an original way. And then art washes away. Art can't wash things, but here, because of this metaphor, we give it new life. And at the end of the day, this metaphor would be worthless if it didn't really invoke something in us that we recognize. But here, we recognize it. Yes, art is that thing that inspires us, uplifts us, and does wash away the dust of everyday life, perhaps on our soul, on our heart, whatever, in our spirit. So these are some really, really powerful metaphors. There are thousands of metaphors from all kinds of writers and geniuses in history. We're not going to go through them all, but what we can do is we can do an exercise for you. So here's your exercise to try. The exercise is finish this sentence. Hope is a, but don't say the literal thing. Give it a metaphor. I'll give you my examples so that you see what I'm talking about, and then you can make your own. So here's one of my examples. Hope is a butterfly. Can you imagine that, when the hope really flutters, when you're feeling hope in that moment of hopefulness, when you're excited? It is a little butterfly. Is it a real butterfly? Of course it's not. I would be crazy. But does it have elements of a butterfly? Of course. It's light. It makes your heart and soul fly a little bit. It's gentle. It's a butterfly. It has a lot of those qualities. But of course also, hope is a poisonous butterfly, right? Sometimes it doesn't work out, and then you're really sad, but you had these really positive emotions, but then sometimes it becomes negative, so it can also be poisonous. So here are my two examples, very similar but very, very different. One is positive, one is very negative and sad. So having seen how I would do this, create your own. And by the way, hope is such a widely written about thing that there are thousands of metaphors you can make for this. But in your case, try to make 5 and try to have them be original and interesting for yourself. Surprise yourself. This is really the exercise. It's a creativity exercise. I can't test you, obviously, but at least you can compare it to my answer and see how ours compare. And if you want to post it in the comments of this video, I can take a look and we can chat about it. Now I want to introduce similes. Similes are very similar to metaphors, with only a couple of differences. Still, it's a word or a phrase that represents another idea in a non-literal way, so far it's the same as a metaphor, but the things you're comparing are connected with words such as like or as, instead of making a direct comparison. And again, it's used to enrich the meaning of the original word or the phrase, and gives it just fuller life that can spur imagination and evoke emotion. So with that, let's look at some examples, starting with very, very simple examples. So the simplest example is X is like Y. If it was a metaphor, you would get rid of the word like. X is Y. Love is a smoke made with the fume of sighs that we looked at earlier. The world is your oyster. Or if it's a simile, then it would be the world is like an oyster. Sometimes the meaning is kept almost exactly the same, but sometimes the meaning changes quite drastically, and we'll take a look at those different examples shortly. But what I wanted to show you is this is a simile. X is like Y, and you can replace X and Y with whatever you want. The other way to recognize a simile is if it's written as X is as good or as bad or as something. Those are similes. So you're basically making a comparison that's something like something else, whereas a metaphor is that something is something else. Okay? The metaphor was more direct. The world is your oyster. That's a metaphor. The simile would be changed to the world is like an oyster. In this case, it's very, very similar, almost interchangeable, but sometimes it's not. So let's look at an example of the difference between a simile and a metaphor, just to clear things up a little more. So a metaphor is love is a smoke made with the fume of sighs. Love is a smoke, that's a metaphor. It's a direct association, direct comparison. Whereas if we change this to a simile, we would change it to love is like a smoke. So it's not smoke, it's like a smoke. Again, in this case, they're very, very similar, but I just wanted to show you how it would look like in an example that's a real example. So now let's look at some actual examples of similes. So a very common one would be, I'm brave like a lion. If you say, I'm a lion, that just doesn't make sense, right? It does make sense, except it's an entirely different meaning. Like, are you an animal? In what way are you like a lion? So here, brave like a lion. The simile is the better choice here if you want to be specific about the quality, the single quality of being brave. Another example is clear as mud. If you say, I am mud, that's meaningless. That's kind of ridiculous, right? It doesn't make any sense in a way. But clear as mud, or something is clear as mud, is kind of a sarcastic, common simile that's used to describe something that's very confusing, because of course mud is not clear. And another example of a simile would be like watching the grass grow. Again, if you're watching grass grow, it's a totally different meaning. So here, of course, you would use a simile, whereas if you made this thing into a metaphor, it would have a different meaning, so it just wouldn't make sense to use a metaphor there. So having seen these examples, let's do your own exercise. And the exercise is finish this simile. Life is like... Now, if you watched Forrest Gump, don't say life is like a box of chocolates. That's a really popular simile from that movie. Don't say that because it's been used a lot. Try to make your own. If you want to see my results, pause the video now, make your own, and then compare. But if you don't want to do that, just let the video play, and then you can do this exercise on your own time whenever you're ready. So here are my answers. Life is like a drunk person walking. Maybe this is not the greatest simile ever, but if you picture a drunk person walking, kind of like one step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step to the left, 2 steps to the right, that is kind of like life. So there's something there. Again, I'm not saying this is a great simile, but there's something there. Maybe if I rephrased it slightly, it would be better. Because a drunk person walking can be many different things. So at the moment, it's not specific enough to really have the listener or the reader picture it exactly as you want, because there's too much room for interpretation here. Maybe a drunk person walking, about to fall. Does that mean die? No, it doesn't, right? So just the simile right now needs editing. It's not clear, but at least as an example, it works. Now, another example, my own simile, is life is like a train to nowhere. Again, is it the greatest simile in the world? No. Is it a good example of a simile? Yes. So if you didn't like my similes, your challenge is to make ones better than I made and perhaps post them in the discussion of this video. I would like to see better versions of similes. That's my challenge to you. That's my exercise to you. And with that, I'll end the video here because I think we've covered similes in a pretty complete way with examples and exercises. In this video, let's look at rhymes. And I know that we all know rhymes from kindergarten, essentially. But in this case, we're going to look at rhymes specifically for poetry, different rhyme schemes, and how to make rhymes really enhance your poetry and make it even a little bit musical. So let's start with something basic, just to show you what a difference a rhyme makes. Let's say we make the same point essentially, like I kick the ball all the way down the hall, okay? Nothing exciting about this, there's nothing special, it just has a rhyme. Like if we put it on 2 lines here, you see the first line, ball, rhymes with the second line, hall. So if we say it, it's kind of fun. I kick the ball all the way down the hall. Or I kick the ball all the way down the hall. However you want to say it, you have complete freedom of how you do the timing and emphasis, but you see, I kick the ball down the hall, sounds cool and fun. As opposed to that second line without the rhyme. Same idea essentially, but without the rhyme. I kick the ball into the kitchen or something like that. Even though the idea is preserved for the most part, it's a boring idea. It's not fun at all. It's not catchy or memorable. We just lose so much where it's really fun to listen to I kick the ball all the way down the hall. I'm not going to say it's a tremendous amount of fun to listen to that simple rhyme, but it immediately makes things more catchy, more fun, more memorable, and it's just one line. So let's look at what you can do with rhymes, especially when you have really powerful lyrics, and those powerful lyrics are enhanced with rhymes. Then it makes them so much better and stronger, and most importantly, really resonate with your reader or listener, because that's at the end of the day what you want. You want them to go like, wow. And rhymes really help to emphasize points. So let's look at some more complicated examples. Here's an example from one of my songs where I rhymed every last word with every last word of these lines. You don't have to do it that way. In a second, we'll go over more common and popular rhyme schemes, but this is still a good example because this has a lot of the same rhymes. So let's read it together. I was flying through the skies, drunk on music lullabies. It's part of a song that deals with poetry and music and really being uplifted by music. So I was flying through the skies, drunk on music lullabies, Poets fill the skies with magic butterflies. Poets' music flies. This is not exactly great English grammar, but in poetry this passes. This is fine. So again, poets' music flies. Sometimes it cries, but it fills my skies with magic butterflies. If it wasn't rhymed, this would be very bland. This would lose a lot of that cadence and musicality. So having looked at that, let's look at another example of a more common way to rhyme things, because it's kind of rare to find so many words that rhyme and still make good points, because at some point you just lose rhyming words, and so it becomes harder to make the points you want to make. The simplest thing you can do is divide your poem, no matter how long it is, into sets of 2 or 4 lines. So let's say 4 lines each. The reason for that is you can have a 1-2, 1-2 kind of a rhyme scheme. The 1-2, 1-2 is really, if this is 1 and this is 2, so the 1 and the 2 rhyme together. And then this is 1 again, and then this is 2 again. So here's how it would sound. The rhymes would just come after another. So this is an example, again, from that same song, just a different part of it. Our world had magic, now magic is so sparse. The puppet master stole beauty from the arts. So sparse and arts rhyme. It's not an exact rhyme. The next line is an exact rhyme. The first rhyme is kind of a soft rhyme. It's not as catchy. So let's look at an exact rhyme. Locked beauty in a tower hidden by the misty fog. Only one hero can save her from beyond the smog. So fog and smog rhyme pretty well because the OG, the whole last syllable, is rhymed. But the example here is line 1 rhyming with line 2 and line 3 rhyming with line 4, and basically one line rhyming the next. And then as you can see, the third line can have a different vowel. The first is arts, that's the rhyme, sparse and arts. The A is what we're soft rhyming on, but the lines 3 and 4 is OG and OG, which is unlike the previous example where all the words rhyme together. So here you just need 2 lines to rhyme together. So in this kind of a situation, you just need 2 lines to rhyme together. Now let's look at an example of another common rhyme scheme, which is a little different. I'll put them side by side here so you can compare. This is an example where line 1 rhymes with line 3 and line 2 rhymes with line 4. Now in this example, I only have line 2 rhyming with line 4, but that's fine. So here's how it would read. So this is a translation I'm working on. So this is a poem by somebody else, and the original language is Russian. I'm translating it now, trying to keep the rhyme schemes interesting. So it's not my poem, but it's from another popular poet. Anyway, let's read it. So perhaps my love's naive and out of fashion. I made it my life's endeavor. It's a part of a song. As a poem, it doesn't read catchy in any kind of way. But let's recall this word endeavor because it's going to rhyme with the word forever. You see, line 2 is rhyming with line 4. So with that in mind, let's read it again. Perhaps my love's naive and out of fashion. I made it my life's endeavor. I fight for longing hearts and won't surrender. A nobleman of tenderness forever. So the endeavor and forever rhyme. If there's a lot of space between the lines, you kind of lose the rhyme, but it's certainly an option. We can also make it more fun. Line 1 and 3 right now don't rhyme, but we can make it rhyme. Something that rhymes with either fashion into the third line or something that rhymes with surrender instead of the word fashion. So let's think of what could that be. Let's just say I'm not going to preserve great points. I'm just going to focus on the rhymes. So we can say, perhaps my love's naive and tender. Now this becomes a little bit bad poetry because it's a little too sweet. It's not tasteful anymore. At least I think it's just a little much. Like it's a little too sappy. But we're just doing this for the rhyme scheme. So tender now rhymes with surrender. So let's read it again and see if it became more catchy. Perhaps my love's naive and tender. I made it my life's endeavor. I fight for longing hearts and won't surrender. A nobleman of tenderness forever. So in this case, when I listen to myself saying it, I only feel a very faint trace of that rhyme. So when that happens, you can keep it It's still fine. There's still a faint trace of the rhyme. Or you can shorten the lines, or you can say it more musically with more emphasis on the rhymes. I'm not a good orator of these kinds of things. In my poetry, it's usually sung in a song and all kinds of different elements are in play. But good readers of their own poetry can and do make this rhyme scheme work. In general, my preference is to stick with the 1-2-1-2. It's a lot simpler. And the logic that I have is, well, why would I make this complicated when there's already so many things that are difficult, like finding the right metaphors, saying things in a few words. Like, it's already hard. I don't need my rhyme schemes to become more of a challenge than they are. They're already a challenge because sometimes there are so few words that rhyme with the words I want to use that I'm really limited in what I can say. So I don't want to limit it further. That's why I use the simple case, which is the 1-2-1-2, or in this case I wrote 1-2-3-4, just basically when the lines next to each other rhyme. That's what I use most commonly, and that's what I recommend starting to work with. And before we wrap up this video, just a quick note with some rules. You should not be rhyming a word with itself. Like, you can't rhyme forever and forever. You can't rhyme hello and hello. It has to be other words. And the soft rhyme is just when one vowel matches. And a full rhyme is when a whole syllable matches. The full rhyme is usually more catchy. It usually sounds more fun. The problem is that there are fewer words that rhyme fully with other words. And sometimes you want to preserve the point you're making, and it's a trade-off. Like, do you want to make the point? Do you want it to be more catchy? What do you need in the end from that line? And really, it's hard to tell because it really depends on the listeners and their experience. So there's a lot of variables in mind, and it's not always easy to understand exactly what you're going to need ultimately in the end while you're writing. So that makes it really hard. And lastly, what I'll say is sometimes when we write, certain words are spelled a certain way. They're not pronounced that way. But in the reader's mind when they read it, or if they read it out loud, or if you read it out loud, you have to make sure that the rhymes still rhyme when you say them a certain way, because some words are just not pronounced how they're spelled. And also, by the same token, you can change how certain words are said if the poem is meant to be sung or spoken. For example, I'll give you a small example here. I wrote this little poem just now. It's not a good poem, but every word rhymes. I fell to her spell in an emotional swell because of her smell. She's such a belle in a well. I guess I fell in a well would make more sense. So I fell in a well. But you understand. Basically, I'm doing this whole thing with well, bell, L. That's the rhyme, you see? Oh, well, she could tell. It's kind of fun only because of the rhymes. There's almost no story. I fell in a well because of her smell. That's essentially the story. Like, I fell in love and we made it sound more fun and rhythmic. But what I wanted to show you here is that I'm really overdoing the L, right? I'm adjusting how the word sounds because of my need to make the rhyme scheme work better. For example, I fell, I'm really overdoing the vowel. The fell, in a well, spell, swell. By the way, if you are going to talk your poems, if you're going to show them and present, what you really want to do is talk the vowels. L, well. When we want to make things catchy and musical, we don't speak the consonants very much. We emphasize the vowels more. So spell, swell, there's more energy to it. It's more interesting. It sounds better. Just keep that in mind for if you ever present your poetry. So these are examples of different rhyme schemes, how rhymes really enhance what you've written, and how also you can bend the rhymes to even more enhance what you've written by just mispronouncing some words by 10 or 15%, which is still an okay amount. People will still understand what you're saying, but it will just sound more musical, more rhythmic. So these are the basics of rhyming in poetry. You don't have to rhyme, but a rhythm or a rhyme will make lines in your poem more emphasized. It will perk the listener's attention. It will be more interesting to listen to, and therefore, obviously, with audience retention, more people will like it, and so on and so on. So it is a definite plus, so you should definitely try to have it. With this video, let's start the section of the course where we begin writing our poem. And right before we do that, I just want to give you a quick checklist that you should follow in order to make sure you're staying on the right track to see what are the elements of a poem. And every poem doesn't have all of these, but at least you should try to have as many of these as possible. So for content in your poem and ideas, you should try to have original ideas, something interesting in your imagery. You should have lyrical creativity and daring, so you can even make up words. You can say things creatively that's maybe not correct in grammar, but you can do it because it's poetry if it works in your poem, if it aids your poem. Often also poems have main points or takeaways. They use metaphors and similes. They often also take the reader and invite the reader into a different world. They use few or no cliches because it's original, and there's a lot of show don't tell, meaning you're not explaining things, you're showing with imagery. You're evoking imagination, and the subject matter is interesting. The poem itself is interesting, and it's compelling, and it's humanly relatable. That's for your content ideas. Again, you may not have all of them, it's fine, but at least try to have as many of these as possible. Now, regarding your structure, again, you don't have to have all of these, but try to have as much as possible because they typically aid your poem quality. So a rhyme structure or a meter, which gives it cadence and musicality. You can also be creative in your grammar, just like you're creative maybe in your word choices or your word use or changes. Same thing with your grammar. You can be creative in how you use punctuation or phrase conjugation. And of course, be mindful of the tone and the voice and the intonation and pronunciation of the poem, how it will be read. Even if you don't plan to read it, in the reader's mind, they're going to read it. And some words should be emphasized, and some words should not be, and some phrases should be emphasized, and that's how you will write the poem. And so you should write the poem with that in mind. Because if there's some word or phrase that's really important, you want that to be emphasized, whether it's somebody reading it out loud or in their mind. So that's a checklist for what you should have. And in the next video, we're going to actually start writing your poem. We'll start with something very basic and we'll get into more complex poetry. In this video, let's begin writing your poem, and we're just going to write a one-line poem, essentially what it's about, and we're going to build on it. So you should pick a topic that you care about, that's relatable, that you're interested or passionate about, and hopefully that your audience and you can connect on a level of humanity. So let's stay away from politics, let's stay away from social issues. Something more deeply human is a great topic. And it should be something that is on your mind and on your heart now that will make it more interesting for you to write and more interesting for your readers as well, hopefully. So here's mine. Yours should not have the same topic as me, but you can actually see how I'm doing mine and transfer that to how you do yours. But here's my topic that I chose. Maybe my topic will be myself dealing with self-doubt. That's a common thing. I think a lot of people can relate, and being maybe unhappy about some parts of how life is going. Of course, there's always reason to be happy and appreciate how a lot of the parts of life are going. It's not a poem about complaining or skulking or, being like my life is so sad. No, I am grateful, right? But even though I am grateful, I am also honest that, hey, some things maybe are not coming out as well as I had hoped when I started out. And this is the part where you're humanly honest. It's very easy to say, everything's going great, I'm grateful, thanks for everything, I'm a good human being, I appreciate. It's very easy to say that. It's almost like politically correct thing to say. But we should be honest with ourselves and examine everything from both perspectives. Like, some things are going great, some things may be going less than what I aimed for. I can still be appreciative of all of it, but I'm still honest with the situation intellectually. And that's what my poem is going to be about. And your poem should also be about something that's, you're in the gray area of life, essentially, somewhere in your life in some topic. So choose what that is for you, and we'll do more on this in the next videos. So in this video, I'm going to show you literally like one-line poems, 2 little ones, just one lines. It's not a full poem, obviously, but we're just starting, and we're building up in tiny baby steps. So I'm going to show you how I put what I talked about in the previous video about maybe life working out in some ways, not in some other ways, or maybe not as good as I had hoped, all that. How do you make that poetic instead of just explaining that in a million words, right? So here is my first attempt at it. And again, this is not the greatest poetry in the world. This is just for us to learn. And by the way, when you're learning, it's always a safe space. It's always supportive, because poetry requires a lot of opening up and a lot of vulnerability. So whoever you're writing with, like right now, you are writing with me kind of, we're always supportive. Even though we may give constructive feedback, it's always from a non-judgmental space, from a nice place, from a place of helpfulness. So with that in mind, let's read our one-line poem here that I wrote. So, I'm knocked out by self-doubt. Notice there's an inner rhyme. This could be 2 lines. I'm knocked out by self-doubt. Out and doubt kind of rhyme. So it's catchy to say. And again, it's an image that I painted, right? I'm knocked out by self-doubt. Imagine a person being knocked out by self-doubt. It's a metaphor. Self-doubt doesn't have the quality of punching anybody, right? But a person can still be knocked out by self-doubt if you picture and imagine it. So this poem has imagery, has a metaphor, has a rhyme, and it's all accomplished literally in just a few words, essentially. And most importantly, I believe it gets the point across. Maybe in not a direct way, because poetry isn't so direct sometimes, but it gets the point across that there's self-doubt, there's an internal struggle, that kind of stuff is happening, and it's really having a toll on me, right? Knocked out. So having looked at that, let's look at the next line. The next line is basically just another attempt by me to come up with a line of a poem that summarizes what I wanted to write about. So let's look at it. Life's outcomes unfair put me in despair. Here, there's no metaphor, but I am using creative grammar and language, right? It's not grammatically correct, but it's still clear. Like, life's outcomes unfair put me in despair. It's rhymed, makes it catchy to say. It's a relatively original way to phrase things, and it still gets the point across. Like, life's outcomes are unfair, and that puts me in despair, right? That's the idea. It's just phrased in a more poetic way. So those are my attempts. Try to sum up the idea of your poem that you're going to write in also a slightly more creative, poetic way. And then as we go through the next videos, we're going to build on that tiny step by tiny step, and then you're going to end up with a bigger poem. I mean, all of these, are they the greatest poems in the world? Of course, no, because it takes a lot of practice, it takes editing, etc., etc. But at least we are writing something which is the ideal first step. So with that, I'll see you in the next video. Before we go on and write longer poems, I want to show you examples of bad poems and talk about why. And remember, this is art, it's subjective, this is only my opinion, but I'm going to explain why I think it's bad. And these poems, I'm not going to tell you who wrote them, they're by amateur poets, and I feel okay showing them to you because you don't know who wrote it, that person's not embarrassed, it's fine. And again, it's just opinion from a peer. Like, I'm a poet, they're a poet, they might not like my stuff. Anyway, let's look at this poem. It's very short, and we'll talk about what's bad about it. Let's read it together. I won't chase you or beg you to stay. I'm actually grateful I'm finally awake. This is obviously a person who is dealing with a breakup. It's very literal here. What's wrong with it? I feel like it's lacking imagination. It's almost prose. It's not very poetic at all. There's no metaphors. There's no similes. There aren't really interesting ideas. The poet thought, I think, that I'm actually grateful I'm finally awake. I think they thought that this is an interesting idea. But I think this is kind of like it belongs in a tweet or something, which is an insult for a poem, because, you know, it's something that people just repeat all the time. Oh, I'm strong, I'm moving on, that kind of stuff, right? Anybody can put on that fake face. I'm not seeing any vulnerability by the poet. And above all, I think that's the worst thing about it. There's no vulnerability. This is a fake poem. Because really, why write if you've already moved on and you're so grateful? I just don't think there's much interesting there. What would be interesting there is an exploration of real emotions, of dealing with the breakup, something that's relatable. And again, it's my subjective opinion, because you might say, well, them getting over the breakup is relatable, but I'm not into it. This is not doing anything for me, because I think there was an opportunity to make this interesting and unique and offer an interesting perspective, but this perspective really falls flat to my taste. It really is a little bit too cliche. Like, I'm so strong, I'm moving on. All of us have heard that a million times before. We don't really need it. There's nothing original about it. It makes it boring and predictable. We don't want to write that. We want to catch ourselves if we write that and say, wait, let's make this more interesting. So that's my critique of this poem. So now let's look at another bad poem and also see, do we like it, do we not like it, what's good, what's bad about it. Now, here's the other poem, very short. I flourish in the sunshine, just as I do in the shade. Again, there's no interesting ideas pretty much here, no metaphors, no imagination. This could be a tweet, which is kind of our insult. It's an idea that I've come across a million times. The comparisons here are not too imaginative, like really you flourish in the sunshine and you flourish in the shade. Wow, good for you. There's just not much on this bone here, right? And that's the worst thing about this poem. I'm okay with no rhymes. I'm okay with many things, but I want to have an aha moment takeaway. And I don't have that here. And that's why this poem does not get a pass from me. Now let's look at another poem that's not so good. There was nothing quite wrong, but it didn't feel right. You kept me in the dark. It's time to make my own light. Okay, this has a rhyme scheme, line 2 and line 4. Rhyme, right and light. That's fine. It's rhyming. It's a little bit cadent. I can see the rhythm here. But again, there's a lack of imagination. Again, if you read it, there's nothing quite wrong, but it didn't feel right. Okay, we're in the gray area of life. That's cool. But I feel like there are so many better ways to phrase being in doubt and not knowing where you stand in a relationship or in life. So it just could be so much better, right? That's the problem. We're dealing with something mediocre. Now, line 3, you kept me in the dark. Okay. Now, line 4, it's time to make my own light. Okay, great. This person is also moving on. It's kind of similar sort of stuff. This feels like a child who is scared of the dark, but to make themselves feel brave, they say, I'm not scared of the dark. This feels a little bit like that. Like this person is obviously dealing with something, but they're writing that they're not. It's a little disingenuous to yourself, I think, as a poet. Now, to contrast the mediocre poetry, I want to show you an example of good poetry. This is an example of a Russian poet's work. His name is Bulata Kujava, that I translated to English, and I wanted to show you the imagery he uses. It's very powerful here, at least in my opinion. So let's read it together. Above my road shine just like your eyes, 2 cold evening stars looking down at me. It's a simile. The stars are shining cold, just like perhaps some woman's eyes, right? Because the protagonist of the story is male. It's a song. It's a poem that's in a song. So in this particular song, it's a male protagonist talking about the woman whose eyes to him feel cold like the 2 evening stars that shine above his road. So it's a really kind of thought-evoking imagery. And then continues even stronger. Maybe if there was warmth in your embrace, my road might have been easier to bear. If you can imagine maybe having a loved one or somebody who you want them to wish you well, but they didn't. You want them to send you off with a warm embrace and a warm goodbye, but they didn't. There's a lot of loneliness in that. There's a lot of sadness in that. But he doesn't say, I'm sad. He shows it in this very lyrical, imaginative, creative, but very human way. Probably many of us can identify with a time in their life when they wanted more warmth in somebody's embrace, but there just wasn't. So you see, it's kind of talking about the same things that those mediocre poems were talking about, but certainly in an imaginative, really humane, and you can even say, to me, deeply moving way. And it's not just to me, actually, because this is part of an extremely popular Russian song that I actually translated to English. It's on my YouTube channel. And actually, in English, people love this song as well. Of all the songs that I've done on my YouTube channel so far, this gets the most positive comments from real people who, I don't know, but they just found the song on YouTube and they loved it, and they loved it enough to comment, and all the comments are like, wow, it's so touching, and so on and so on. So this actually resonates with a lot of people across cultures. So hopefully that paints a picture of, the same sort of topic is covered, but in a mediocre way versus a quality way. In this video, let's take our poem that we're working on. And previously, we've only written one line, and I showed you my one line, actually 2 examples of how I'd write it. And a natural way to expand it is into a haiku. A haiku is a 3-line poem that has a specific structure. 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. So this line would have 5 syllables, like that. The next line would have 7 syllables, like that. And this line would have 5 syllables again. So you have a very strict structure, and into the structure you have to fit a whole poem. Now, the haiku is a poem from a Japanese tradition. Obviously, we're doing this in English, so the language is very different. So I don't want to enforce strict counting of syllables. If you're off by 1 syllable, it's fine. And you know what? Sometimes you can say I versus I will, and you're kind of cheating. You can have 1 or 2 syllables. So let's not be too strict on the syllables, but certainly not stray away from it too much. But here you essentially get 3 lines to write a poem, and you would just expand that poem that maybe you did in 1 line before. Hopefully now you can expand it into 3 lines. And I wrote my own haiku just for you for this exercise. So here's my own haiku about how, like life, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, some things work out, some things don't work out, kind of like the gray area of life. Again, we're appreciative of things we have, we're grateful, but at the same time, we're honest with what things are falling short, what things are not. So here's my haiku. I punch life's unfair. So obviously I'm taking a lot of liberties with grammar. I could have used more syllables here, but it just would have taken me off of the 5-7-5. So in my case, I stayed strictly with the 5-7-5 syllable structure. So let's stay with it. I punch life's unfair. Even though there are grammar issues, I think you can still understand what that is. Life's unfair. There's a lot of things that are unfair in life, and I punch it. But I can't hit my despair. Every punch just hits air. Everyone is dealing with self-doubt, despair, at least partially, right? No one is all happy all the time. But in this case, it's kind of like I'm losing to it, but I can't hit my despair. Every punch just loses air. I'm not saying I'm strong, I am so amazing. I'm not doing that. I'm being vulnerable in this poem. Now, writing it, it's impossible to tell how it will be read and felt by listeners or readers. But certainly, when you are vulnerable, you give yourself more chance that it will resonate with people's real emotional memory of their own such experiences, which is valuable to them, which is actually valuable to me, which is why I'm writing about it. It's an interesting thing to explore. So try to take your poem now and put it into this structure. And again, look, you can mess around with the syllables because look, the last line, every punch is just hitting air, right? So I can say like that. And we can have exactly the same meaning, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 syllables, okay? So the exact syllables, they don't have to matter in this case because you can just tweak the wording, but still try to have something interesting and sensible in your haiku. Now, also notice I have a rhyme scheme, which is rare for a haiku. Unfair, despair, air, they all rhyme together. It's actually hard to do. You don't have to do it, but it's a plus because now my haiku is also cadent. It's musical. It's fun to say and it's more memorable. So again, you don't have to have that, but it is a plus that I wanted to point to your attention what I did here. So try to write now your haiku, and in the next videos, we're going to grow this to a longer poem. Previously, we wrote a haiku with our poem, and hopefully you created your haiku.
And so let's take that to a 4-line poem. In my case, 4 lines is great for a song because a typical chorus of a song, and if you're not familiar, the chorus of a song is typically the memorable, the catchy part of the song, the part of the song that you sing along to. It's usually 4 lines. So it's great because now we're going to be able to use something in a song. So this is actually the chorus of the song that I'm going to be writing with this exact idea, with this exact poem. And the song is about, 16 to 24 to 28 lines, depending on the length of the song and the complexity of the lyrics. But for now, we're going to do a chorus. And even if you're not doing a song, a 4-line poem is a really good, one of the standard lengths of a small poem. It's very presentable. You can post it on Instagram, on Facebook. It's very digestible to readers. So it's a good length. So let's read what I did to our previous haiku that I wrote and shared with you in this one. And obviously, I have more space here. Not just that I have an extra line, but just every line can have a little bit more space. So let's read it together. I ran head first through walls and the word unfair. It's an image, right? I ran head first. It's a metaphor. Obviously, I didn't run through literal walls, but it's a metaphor that shows the intensity of what's happening. Then got a wolf's bite and a damning glare. Again, I don't have a wolf's bite. I don't have a damning glare. These are metaphors, but hopefully they illustrate the intensity of what had to happen here. It's something that sort of happens as you go through life. You kind of have to toughen up, but I'm not saying it in those literal words. I'm saying that in sort of poetic language. And then I'm saying, still swinging hard, but can't hit my despair. So even though I had this moment where I'm saying, hey, I'm so strong, I have a wolf's bite and a blah, 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 and a damning glare, and I'm so strong and all that, right away, vulnerability. I'm still swinging hard, but I can't hit my despair. With every punch, I'm just hitting air. So no matter how hard I try, it all falls flat, or it feels like that, right? So it's a poetic way to express something. Notice how many metaphors there are. There's like metaphors in every line. 2 metaphors here, metaphor here, hit my despair. Obviously, you don't hit despair. Despair is not a physical thing. I'm not actually swinging, okay? So there's like 2 metaphors per line. With every punch, I'm just hitting air. I'm not actually punching air, right? So it's not a thing I'm actually doing, but it's an image I'm trying to paint that if you picture this kind of a person, maybe there's something relatable. And also notice the rhyme scheme. Unfair glare rhymes, despair, air rhymes. So it's musical. Hopefully, when I put music to it, it will make it catchy. If it becomes catchy, this makes music the kind of thing that you want to listen to again and again. It's kind of cool lines, at least let's say according to me. It's not the greatest writing in the world. I'm not Shakespeare. But I think it's kind of cool. It's something original here. I'm painting my own sort of original picture with these words. And there's a catchy rhyme scheme. And if I'm successful at coming up with the right melody, this can become the foundation for a catchy song. Now, the song is still far ahead in the future. We're just dealing with the lyrics. But at least you see how a song would develop. And even if you don't sing this, if you perform it, or if you have somebody read it in their mind, if they're sensible to reading it, they will see that, hey, unfair and glare rhymes. And so they might emphasize that. Even if they're silently reading, they might emphasize that in their mind. In this video, I want to share with you the full poem that came out from that haiku that I showed you how I wrote, then the 4-line poem. Then we have now a full-length poem that can also be a song, which I'm working on turning it into a song. And it took me a number of weeks, actually, to get it from the 4-line poem to what I'm going to show you is about a 30-line poem. And it's because it's 30 lines, it's a little bit too long to show in a video and really dissect. So I'm going to have it as a downloadable. If you want to read through it, we'll read through it together. I'll only highlight the most important part just because it's going to be a little too long if I focus on details. And the most important thing for you really is to just see how it evolved for me. Maybe see if there's anything that resonates with you, if there's any image that resonates with you. Take that away as a learning experience. You don't have to copy what I did, but for your topic that you're writing, see if you create something like this. And the way I did it is I created a long poem that has the structure of a song, because I'm going to obviously turn this into a song. At least that's the plan. If you're not planning to turn your poems into songs, you can have more free structures for your poem. But I will warn you that what I see a lot of beginner poets do is if they embark on longer poems and they don't have a specific structure, then it gets crazy and wild because you don't know when to stop, you don't know how long it's supposed to be. The editing becomes hard because you don't have a target. Here I have a real strict target structure, and that actually made it easy for me to fit everything that I want to say into it. So for you, what I would recommend if you're new at writing longer poems, like over 10 lines or so, especially if they get into 20, 30 lines and more, pick a structure beforehand and try to fit things into it. It's not something that you want to do as you get more experience, but certainly you'll get really lost if you don't stick to a structure. And a structure will actually help you stay organized and on track and not have too many superfluous things, because also a lot of things we add to our poems we need to take out during the editing. But sometimes if you have a lot of space, you're not constrained by space, and so you don't take things out that actually damage your poem, because brevity and being to the point actually makes it better than having a longer poem. It's not always like that, but often. So anyway, that's just my advice for if you're writing longer poetry. But let's look at what I did here and let's see what you can take away from what I did. So the first verse, and songs are kind of like verse, verse, chorus. So here's the first verse. A vision I see, 5-year-old me, first time knocked down. Innocence scattered on the ground. So young and already so cold, tugging my sleeve with a plea, asking only one thing, make life turn out for me. Now, it's kind of complicated, so I'll explain it a little bit. A vision I see, so it's kind of like me, the current age me, sees this vision of me at 5 years old getting knocked down. And then it's kind of like in the imagination, this 5-year-old me tugs my sleeve with a plea. So the 5-year-old me tugs the sleeve of the current me, asking, make life turn out for me. So it's a little bit of a dark kind of opening. I would say it's a little bit imaginative because, you kind of always have the younger you sort of next to you. It's a part of you. But here, I put the younger me right next to me. And the younger you, they're always weak, right? The child. And so they're asking you, hey, make life turn out for you. So that's what I tried to do in the opening. And notice there's a lot of imagery. Innocence scattered on the ground, metaphor. A vision I see, 5-year-old me, first time knocked down. Like you next to your younger you. That's not a common image we typically imagine. So there's a few things going on here. And then I answered that in the chorus, which is similar to our 4-line poem that I showed you before. And it answers to that child. What happened later? Well, here's what happened later. I ran headfirst through walls in the word unfair, got a wolf's bite and a damning glare. This paints the picture of like kind of this rougher adult, right? The child was innocent, the adult is rougher. Then the adult still swinging hard but can't hit my despair. With every punch I'm just hitting air. So the adult is rougher, but what is that worth anyway? It doesn't seem like it's really compensating for everything, right? Still some things are off. So then we get into verse 2, which is still the story. And verse 2 is like this. I see me at 20 fighting for this kid, right? So now instead of picturing just me at 5 years old, I also see me at 20. And I'm choosing a life path, but I'm dreadfully unequipped, kind of like 20-year-olds, young adults. They don't know everything about life. They're not fully equipped, right? Backpack over my shoulder, maps fall out because it's unzipped. Somebody stop him for the rest of my life. I'll be fixing his shit. Now, I took a little liberty with the word shit just because it rhymes with unzipped and it sounds kind of cool. But the idea is, like decisions you make when you're 20 or 18 or whatever, you have to live with them for the rest of your life in a way. And some of those decisions aren't quite right, but you have to live with them and you have to fix them, and they lead you to certain directions. And so that's the line. For the rest of my life, I'll be fixing his shit. Some of the decisions maybe weren't right, but I couldn't know. It's just 20 years old. And there's a lot more kind of philosophical stuff going on here in verse 2, but I'm not going to get into it because it's a little too detailed and I don't want the video to run too long. So let's get to verse 3. Still talking about the young adult. He dreams of ideals, but stuck in swamps of the mundane. Metaphor, you see? Swamps of the mundane. There's no such thing. It's a metaphor. Hopes turn frustration at every bend. Anger boils with the death of its youthful flame. I look back and watch him grow enraged and insane. So if you were speaking this and if you were reading this, you would say, I look back and watch him grow enraged and insane, right? Like kind of there's a turning point of the song here where this kid gets angrier or crazier as an adult, right? As life goes on. Now, it's not autobiographical. I don't think I'm crazy or angry, but I thought it would be cool for this poem. And honestly, when I was writing this, every other day, I was like, is this too much? I wonder if I overwrote it. Like, I'm not crazy and I'm not angry, but I thought it would be cool for the poem, right? It's an artistic piece. Of course, a lot of people often interpret it like, is this autobiographical? Are you crazy? Well, are you angry? And, of course, I'm going to hear from all my friends, hey, why are you writing this? My mom will call me, hey, like, why are you writing this? Are you crazy? Like, are you angry? Is anything wrong? Right? That kind of thing. No, I'm not crazy. I'm not angry. But in the poem, I thought it would make it cooler. And then in the song, usually the chorus would repeat after this. So it's the same lyrics from the chorus. We're going to skip that. And then the bridge happens. The bridge is a little too long for a standard song in this case. I might have to cut it when I make a song out of it. But what I wanted to do in the bridge is kind of like have a different perspective. So let's read it. So in this whole song, right, like I'm looking for a destination. There's like this whole life path metaphor happening. So I address that here. I'm looking for a destination, but every turn has more frustration. I want to find the 80-year-old me to ask if life worked out. You see, I'm looking, so we had the 5-year-old, the 20-year-old, the me, the adult now me, and then I'm looking for the 80-year-old me, the one that's going to grow up hopefully, and I want to ask him what happened. And that's where we are. I want to find the 80-year-old me to ask if life worked out. But he's nowhere to be found, and I sink into self-doubt. I let that 5-year-old down, and we watch our life capsize. I can't look in his eyes, right? It's kind of like he's still standing next to me, but I'm like, did I fail him? What happened? Did I die? I don't know. Like, it would be weird to write like, we met the 80-year-old and he said everything is great and it's fine, or he said everything is bad. I thought it would be cool if it was ambiguous and open-ended, like we can't find him. It's a little more mysterious. So that's where I left it. It's more dramatic. I'm like, oh my God, like we really won't find out. And then that's how this bridge ends. I think if it was a poem, probably these 3 lines I would cut. In the song, I'm currently writing a melody, and I found a way to make it sound cool, so I'm keeping these 3 lines, but that's just a matter of what you're going to use this for. Generally, a bridge in a song would be 4 lines, so even here, it's a little long, but whatever. We got the general idea. And then the last verse of the song, the last part of the story, I thought to end it with something hopeful. In moments when I feel like I've drowned, that child in me opens a world, clock rewound. Here I was in the writing dealing with the rhyme schemes, drowned, rewound, and the lengths of the verses. They really had to be strict and mimic each other in all the verses so that the melody can fit when I write it into a song. So the wording here is a little weird, and I kind of left it like that. But I know it doesn't sound quite right. I just took that liberty for the song. Anyhow, so the child in me opens a world, clock rewound, where magic is floating like a blown dandelion, wonder still waiting to be found. So kind of ended with something hopeful. I think this is philosophically maybe the weakest verse, but it actually took a long time to write. It was really hard to tie in all the loose ends of the song or poem. And then I finished with the last chorus, which is mostly the same, up to the 3rd line, still swinging hard but can't hit my despair. And I finish with a slightly different ending at the very end of the song. But sometimes I find magic in the air, a second to forget about despair. So despair is not going away, problems are still here, but sometimes there's a second where you forget about it all. And that's the most hopeful spot where I left it. It's not too hopeful, but it's not hopeful. It's kind of like in the middle of life somewhere. So that's how my poem came out. In the future, I don't know when, and I don't know when you're going to see this, but I'm going to put this song, when I get around to recording it, editing it, all that stuff, making a video for it. It's going to take a while, but I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. Have no idea when, like I said. But if you're curious, you can check out my YouTube channel, Alex Genedinik Music, and see the previous songs I released and this one, because actually I think this one, the melody I'm writing, will be cool as a song, and really see how the music makes the lyrics come alive. And that's it. That's my longer poem. And now it's your turn to write yours. As I mentioned, this took me a while. So it's not like overnight you're going to come up with a whole story and a whole bunch of metaphors. It takes a lot of soul searching, heart searching, editing, etc., feedback. That's the process you should go to. Don't think you're just going to overnight have this. If you are, it's not going to be good. It's only going to be good after a ton of editing and all of that. So don't let that stop you, though. It's just a regular process. So now it's just your turn to embark on that arduous process that's also very rewarding. So go for it. Now let's talk about how to improve as a poet. Well, there are some obvious basics that you can do, and everybody essentially does. Obviously, write more and read more poetry by the greats. You must get inspired and get ideas from people like Shakespeare and all the other great poets who came before you. If you don't, you'll have a lot of blind spots, and experienced readers and other writers will easily notice a lack of the right fundamentals that you would get from reading the classics and the greats that came before you if you don't read them. So that's like a requirement and a must. And it's actually just enjoyable too. Also, make sure you get a lot of feedback from all sources. We'll talk about that shortly. And also put it out there. Put your writing on Amazon and the Kindle. Make videos about it. Show it to your friends. And also be self-scrutinizing, because a lot of times today people are like, you're so great, you're so great. And that's the feedback we get a lot today, even though people are just being nice and kind of fake. But in the arts, you can't accept that. In the arts, you have to be absolutely objective and find all the flaws, because guess what? Even if people aren't verbalizing the flaws, they feel it in how your art impacts them. That's why self-scrutiny is extremely important here. It doesn't mean you have to make yourself have low confidence. No, but certainly you have to find the flaws to improve it. So let's talk about getting feedback, because it's so important, really in every profession, but especially in the arts. Now I'm going to make a suggestion that's going to seem a little contrarian. I'm going to say that you should love your haters and your trolls. They're pointing out where you can be better. Even if they phrase things in hateful or not nice language, there is a reason why they don't like your work. Most haters, they're going to find something that irked them in your work. And of course, you don't have to take all of their advice, but certainly you should think about it to look for clues, because some clues are easy to find of how you can improve. But some clues of how you can improve are so hard to find that it will take you years. So it's actually a lot of really complex work to find all of your flaws. And haters and trolls are one of the great tools to identify what's a problem in your work. And this is the kind of advice you'll rarely hear. You'll usually hear exactly opposite advice. Don't listen to the trolls, blah, blah, blah. That's fine if you just want to protect your feelings. But here we're after something greater and bigger. We're after making better art. Because your friends, 95% of them, they're afraid to give you that kind of help of being truly critical, because they don't want you to get offended. They don't want to strain the relationship. Everybody's politically correct these days. It's easier for them. But it doesn't help you if people say nice, nice, nice. It feels good in the moment, but long term, you don't get that great benefit. And of course, again, the feedback you get, you can think about all of it and synthesize it, but you don't have to take all of it. What the feedback does is just gives you more ideas to think about, more ideas to synthesize. Now, there are also constructive ways to get feedback on your work from other peers. And that's something like attending writing workshops. Every city has a bunch of writing workshops. You have to Google or ask around. And these are specifically designed to get feedback. Like, people will read their work to a group of peers, then the peers will comment. The feedback is sometimes limited because the peers don't have a lot of time to process your work, don't have a lot of time to explain to you what's wrong with it. But at least you get some feedback. And with some of them, you can build relationships, and then you can give and receive feedback with individuals there that you have a good working relationship with and good chemistry long term. So you can make writer friends. Like any industry, you have to network within your industry, and this is exactly how you do that in writing. Now, also, regarding being self-critical, every year you should give yourself the challenge of looking back at your previous year's work and have at least some disgust, okay? Be turned off by it, at least to some degree. Now, again, it's a little bit contrarian, like, why would you have that, right? Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you do that to your work? Well, because every year you'll be finding mistakes that today the improved you would not make. If you're disgusted by your past work, it means today you have improved. If you don't see a lot of flaws in your previous work, that means you haven't improved. Now, most poets, including myself, write a lot of mediocre poetry, especially early on. Every poet's challenge is to say, I'm bad, and then find a way to improve. Because it's very easy for a beginner poet to write platitudes and write about, I'm so great and I'm so strong. That kind of worthless poetry. And until every individual has that dialogue with themselves and tells themselves, wow, I'm writing worthless poetry, they won't improve. So it's a very kind of a soul-searching moment that you might have, but it's a moment of growth because your audience will also see that, and when you improve, your audience response will improve. So that's the challenge, actually. That I have that challenge for myself, and if you're starting out, make it a challenge for yourself. Get to a moment where you look back at your previous poetry and say, wow, this is worthless poetry. Today I'm writing worthwhile poetry. And next year, that poetry you thought was worthwhile, maybe it won't be still the best poetry in the world, but it won't be worthless. It will just have flaws. And you will say, oh, I see how I improved. It still had a lot of flaws. Here's how I'm improving this year. And every year, there should be this cycle. If there's 1 year without this cycle, something's going wrong. And if you stay consistent and improve every year, write better and better poetry, eventually you'll get to a high amateur or professional level where some things become possible. You may become a published poet. You may actually sell as an independent poet, but you sell successfully on Amazon. Or you might perform your poetry to a bigger and bigger audience who actually likes the poetry and comes back. So all that growth will only really happen once your work is good. If you're judged purely on your work, of course you can have gimmicks, like you can dress in flashy ways or things like that. But if you're going to be judged purely on the quality of your poetry, you have to have a very intense focus on self-improvement. I want to quickly talk about how to make your current poem the best it can be. So many people, they write their poem, they edit it a little bit, and they think it's done. But actually, professionals and a professional approach would be something like this. First, you have a draft 0 where you just put down your ideas, you edit that, you get it to a reasonable draft, you get feedback from other people, maybe your friends and family. You take that feedback into consideration, you fix all the things that people pointed out that make sense to you. Obviously, not everything they pointed out, but those things that you agree on. Then when you fix that, that becomes your draft 1. Then you take your draft 1 and you get feedback from the same people, but also from different sources again, right? So it's kind of this iterative cycle. The different sources can be a greater circle of friends, maybe workshops, etc. Then the same thing happens where you take the feedback you got there, you edit the poem, you get draft 2. And this continues and continues and continues. And you can do this quickly. Get feedback every day, fix it every day, get feedback every day, fix it every day, so that you can publish this quickly. But if you can be patient with the final release, guess what's going to happen? In about a week or in about a month, you'll have a whole new level and dimension of ideas. Like, oh my God, I could have taken this to a whole different direction. And oh my God, I could have done this. So if you obviously spend 2 or 3 months on a poem versus if you spend a couple of days or a week on a poem, you're going to have richer ideas in general at a high level for the poem, and it's going to be levels better like that. So yes, feedback is great, and of course you should always proofread, get feedback, but patience with the final release can also really help. But even if you're not too patient and you want to release quickly, definitely go through that iterative feedback cycle. Almost make it a rule of thumb, like you can't publish or you can't show anything to anybody unless you've actually done a few feedback cycles, because without that editing process, it's just never ready. All writing, all creative work becomes better only after a lot of editing. So it's like 5% creativity and 95% you being patient, disciplined, and professional, and getting that poem to a place when it's ready, to a point where it's reaching its maximum potential of quality. That's the idea of this video that I wanted to convey. I know that most people doing creative writing or doing poetry have a dream of one day having their own book on Amazon, their own poetry book, perhaps even their own book in a physical store. Well, in the next videos, I'm going to show you exactly how to set up and upload your book on Amazon, just like I did my book. This is my own poetry book that I wrote. It's kind of a poetry book with songs. So every poem in here comes with an accompanying link to my YouTube channel, so you can read the poem while listening to how it sounds to music, and hopefully the music opens up how the poem sounds and the lyrics in the poem even further. So this is mine, and obviously it took me a while to write, but to set this up took about 30 minutes. So I'll actually walk you through in the next videos how to set up your own book here, just like I have it here. You see, like if I search for poetry books with songs or poetry book with songs, this is the one that comes up. That's mine. So if you click on it, that's the book, and you see I'm selling it for a price. Right now it's 99 cents. So this is how you can start making at least some money. You can set your book to a higher price, of course. In my case, I just wanted people to read. This is the lowest price possible on Amazon because I wanted to make it accessible for people. So in the next videos, I'll show you how to upload your book. I'll show you how to create your book cover so that when your book is ready, you can have a listing like this, like I'm showing you now, essentially overnight, all for free. And you can have a paperback, a physical paperback book, and a Kindle. In my case, right now, I only have a Kindle, but you can have both. And a lot of people wonder, like, do I have to pay for printing and etc.? Actually, Amazon takes care of all of that, and I'll be showing you how to do it so that your dream of having your own book can actually be realized really quickly, surprisingly quickly to many people. And of course, if you liked the poetry so far of mine that I showed you in this course, you're welcome to grab my book. This is the kind of thing that would actually help me because this book is relatively recently launched and I'm still promoting it. So any sale, any review here would help me, and I would actually appreciate it. And I also created a fun interactive experience where it's poetry, but it's with music. So it's kind of a unique type of book anyway, so it's fun to get. But anyhow, I'll have the link to this book and actually to my YouTube channel. So in case you don't want the book, the YouTube channel is all free, and you can hear how some of the poems sound to music, which is kind of an interesting and unique thing anyway. But in any case, if you're interested in more of my work, you know how to find it. But if not, in the next videos, I'll just show you how to set up your own Kindle or paperback book on Amazon. In this video, I'll walk you through the steps of setting up and publishing your first Kindle book on Amazon. And the first step is obviously to go to kdp.amazon.com. That's kdp.amazon.com. That's Kindle's direct publishing platform that you have to use to publish on the Kindle, obviously. And if you don't have an account, you would set up an account. And if you have an account already, maybe your Amazon account, you would just sign in with that. And the account setup is pretty straightforward. You'll click sign up. Most people already have an Amazon account. And KDP just stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. So your KDP will just be associated with your main account. If you don't have an account, then you just say create your KDP account here. And then it asks you for your basic information like your name, email, password, and then says create your KDP account. Pretty simple. So it's not hard to set up this account. Once you set up this account and you're logged in, you'll go to kdp.amazon.com and you'll see something like this. This is your KDP dashboard. You see I have no books here. This is a clean account. This is not the account I use. I'll show you the account I use in a second. But this is closer to what you'll see when you just create your account. So the reason I'm showing you this is just because I don't want you to get surprised by all the extra things I have in my account. But now that you're not surprised, now that you know what to expect more or less, and of course this is going to change over time, Amazon is going to change their layout, but for years they haven't. And really what you really need to do is find, obviously you're publishing on the Kindle, so you need this option and you can find it anywhere, even if they change their design. So let's go to my account and start the setup process from there, because that's actually where I'll host the book that I'm setting up now, the setup of which I'll walk you through. So this is my account, and you see I already have some books published, but in any case, what I'll do is just click on this Kindle ebook, and then it brings me to this kind of a page. You see there's a 3-step process, kind of 3 major steps. The Kindle book details you have to enter, then the content you have to upload, that's your manuscript, and then setting your pricing and everything. So we'll go through that together. So obviously my language is English, and of course you'll set this for whatever you have. Then your book title and subtitle, so I'm going to grab that. And the book I'm uploading is a poetry book that is kind of poetry that I made music to, and that music is on my YouTube, and the idea of my Kindle is to promote my music and poetry, right? So with that in mind, that's my title. So poetry book with songs, and the subtitle will be poetry collection for a journey into beauty. Now, I don't love this title, to be honest, and I don't love the subtitle. Here's the good news. Your first upload is your draft 0, meaning that you can unpublish the book and republish it later from scratch. If you have a new title in mind, sometimes it's not so easy to change the title because it's associated with your book cover and your ISBN, etc. But in the worst case, let's say I really don't love this title, which I don't really love this title yet, then I can just either publish a slightly different book as a new book, or unpublish this book and just republish it being the same book, but just republish it fresh and clean. So that's totally possible. So I'm not too worried about my title and subtitle because I know it doesn't have to be the final. This is sort of draft 0. If you are uploading with the idea that this is going to be my final draft, I'm never going to re-upload again, then of course you want to give your title and subtitle a lot more thought. But in most cases, it's not that necessary. Then as we go on, the series, this is if you have a multi-book series. We're going to skip that for now because I don't. Edition number, we're going to obviously have the first edition. Author, your name. If other people contributed, which in most cases they didn't, so we're going to leave that blank. Description, this is very important. You want to describe your book really well. So here I wrote a brief description. You can also edit this later. The description you can edit anytime. You don't have to unpublish the book, so it's not a problem. Then the publishing rights, probably in most cases people will own the copyright for their book, so we'll just set that. And then the keywords, I used 2 tools, the Google Keyword Tool and Helium 10, and basically just found keywords. In many cases, keywords are obviously, like for example, poetry book, like love poems. Some of the poem translations in this book are from the original poet Bulata Kujava, so I want to have that as one of the keywords. And by the way, if there are some keywords you didn't find that you wanted, you can always come back to this and update this as well. Then we move on and we set categories. In your case, obviously you would find the one that's relevant for you. So I chose 2 categories, love poems, and because again, I translated some poems from a Russian poet, I added that Russian poetry. So pretty simple. Save. Then the age range that you want to select. I think probably for poetry 16 and over. Again, you would fill this out, whatever makes sense for you. And then you would choose whenever you want to publish your book. Like you can release now, which for most of us, that would be the case, or make it on pre-order. So I would release now in my case. Save and continue, and we'll be done with the first part of our setup. And you see it takes you through the second part of the setup. This is where you have to upload your manuscript. And it tells you for KDP what formats you want to use. For example, see the full list here. DocX, EPUB, KPF, there's a ton of them. So you can click that and it will take you to all the formats. See, PDF is available, so pretty simple. Many formats are available. Again, the formatting, you can make it prettier later. But for now, this is draft 0. The goal of this is just to launch early, get feedback, etc. If you have that goal, you can be early in your formatting. If you don't have that goal, if you can wait, you would go to maybe YouTube, how to format your book for your specific situation, for your specific type of book that you have, or you would go on Fiverr.com and hire a freelancer or something like that. But for now, you just want to upload your manuscript with whatever you have if you're in a rush or you want to launch early. And so I would click on upload the manuscript, go and get my manuscript and just upload. They give you a warning that most PDF files don't produce great results in automated conversion. Again, I'm just going to do this now. I'm going to take a look at how this looks like. If it doesn't look good, I'll re-edit the formatting. But for now, I'll say continue with PDF, and it's going to take a few minutes to upload. I'll just fast forward to the point where it uploads. After that, it's going to say upload a cover. If you don't have a cover, you can launch the cover creator. It's not going to make you the most beautiful book cover, but it's going to be fast. That's what we're after. You can always update your cover later. So you will choose the design and then style and edit. So you say got it here, continue, and we would choose the design from their gallery. Let's say we want something artsy. In my case, I want something maybe kind of abstract because it's poetry. So something kind of artsy. So let's go maybe, what's art paper here? Pastels. You would sort of browse the left side here and see what makes sense for you. Like I'd want maybe something inspirational. I kind of browsed and I sort of like this abstract one. So I'm going to use this image. I like the red of it because it's going to stand out. And you see it gives you options for how it would look like. I think that a few of these look reasonable. Like this one has very bold and readable title, which is good on Amazon. It's very similar with this one. I think this one is a little bit cool and artsy because it kind of goes diagonal, but maybe it's a little too artsy. And this one I kind of like because it has kind of like a retro old school feel. I'll probably change the cover, so it doesn't really matter. But I do like this one. It kind of does stand out to me. So I'm going to say choose this design, preview, save and submit. Great. So I've got my cover. After that, you want to launch your previewer just so you can see how the text will look in the book. That's the manuscript you uploaded, the one that it told me, hey, like your PDF might not look good, so you can actually preview this. Whatever this is going to show you may not look the same on all devices because there are Kindle devices, smartphone devices, iPad devices, Android devices that are tablets. So there are many devices. Some people will even read this on their television, who knows? But this is at least going to give you some sense of, are there blatant errors? And it's going to take a minute or two to spin, and I'm going to fast forward to the moment where it finishes spinning, and then we'll pick up the video from there. I'll just cut it to that point. Now, it took about 5 minutes of converting, and my book isn't very long, so it might take a while in your case. And then once it's ready, it's just going to give you an option of launching the previewer, and you'll see how it looks like. So this is the cover, and then you click like next. So far, so much okay. Not terrible. This is just the beginning of the book. Then you've got the poems. Okay, so it kind of looks okay. Some of these are not well formatted. Like the titles look broken. And some of the indentations I had aren't working. So I have to go in and check it out. So I do need to fix the formatting. Nonetheless, because it's going to go through some review process and it's going to maybe have other issues. I want to complete the setup process because while that's happening, and it might take a day or two, the Amazon team might have to look at it, there may be a couple of days between this moment and when the book is live. So I'll actually have time to fix the formatting issue because I probably will just fix the formatting issue in like 30 minutes or an hour. And so I can re-upload my manuscript without having to delay the launch of my book. So actually, even though there are problems with this manuscript, I'm actually going to move forward with the uploading and publishing of the book as though there aren't, because I can fix this before any readers actually see it. So with that in mind, let's say, okay, on the top left, we'll go back to book details and we'll say, great, looks fantastic, even though it doesn't. And we'll be able to say, save and continue. Before that, there's this ISBN question, but it says Kindle ebooks are not required to have ISBN, so we're going to not enter anything. And for publisher, if you're an independent publisher, you want to enter your name. So save and continue. So it's going to save that. And then it gets to the fun part, pricing. So first it asks you, do you want to enroll your book in KDP Select? You just basically enroll it if you can, because you just get a little bit more access to potential readers. Territories, unless you have any restrictions, why not enter all territories? Primary marketplace, Amazon.com. If you're in a different country, it might be a different one for you, but that's my primary one. Now, my book, my personal book, this book, is a very short poetry book. So I only want to price it at the lowest price possible, which is 99 cents. Because it's 99 cents, I have to enter the 35% royalty, because you see, if I enter the 70% royalty, it says only books that are between $3 and $10 can have 70% royalty. The reason I'm entering at 35% royalty is because I'm not planning to really make money from this book, because this book is more to promote my music and my poetry, right? Like, I have other sources of revenue. I don't need 99-cent sales, and it's not even 99 cents because you'll only keep 70% of that. So anyway, when a buyer buys this book, I'll keep 70 cents, which, like, $1 is nothing these days in the United States. It's not like I'm going to amass any kind of wealth, right? So I don't care. So I'm just going to collect 35 cents every time somebody buys this for 99 cents, because mostly I'm going to give it away for free so that I can promote the music that's inside it. And I want to find true fans who like my poetry and who like my music. This is my passion that I want to share. That's my case. For most people's case, that won't be it. If you want to make money, then you want to set the 70% rate, and you want to go, maybe if the book is really a great book, $9.99. If it's a regular book, maybe $4.99. If you want to sell a lot, $2.99. That's the general breakdown. So let's come back to 35%, and it gives me the conversions for other markets. And you can see, like, okay, 74, right? You know that like 69 and 74 is not a big difference. But if you could place it like that, people will buy more at 69 just because it looks like it's cheaper, even though it's pretty insignificantly cheaper. Same thing here, like 77. Well, here you can round up like 79. Now, this is kind of an exercise in futility a little bit. I really just want to make it cheaper and more accessible. So I'm going to say 69. This 89 is perfect in euros. Here it's perfect because instead of 103, I can say 99. Here, $4.99, you see. So you just want to adjust it so that you don't lose a lot of money if you make it cheaper, but what you gain is more purchases. $0.99, you see what I'm doing here. This is perfect for $19.99. And you go down the list like that. If you don't want to give up your 34 cents here because, a drop to 99 cents in Australian dollars might be a lot, you might want to say 119 or 129, but I don't care. Like, I'm just going to say 0.99. Book lending, allow, again, just because I want the biggest circulation. And then I'm going to say, publish your book on the Kindle. Done. So I have a book cover, a preliminary one, and it says it might take 72 hours for your title to be available on the Amazon Marketplace. And because it's not immediate, you rush to go and fix the errors if you encountered any errors. So in my case, I will go and fix the formatting, and I will make my title better. Right? Those are the two things I didn't love, and maybe I'll spend a little more time on getting the keywords right. You don't have to do all this now, but as soon as you can, why not? So essentially what we've done is we've went from absolute zero to now we're just about to have a live book on the Kindle. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make your own book cover, even if you're not a designer like I am, and your book cover will come out looking something like this, which looks pretty natural, maybe I would say 70 or 80% of something that a really good designer would give you, but certainly it looks like it has pretty artwork, right? And this is something that I made in about like 5 or 10 minutes, with the only caveat was that it took me longer because obviously after my first draft, I showed it to people, then they told me what they didn't like, and then I fixed it. And I'm not a painter, I'm not an artist, I don't know fancy Photoshop, nothing like this. So in this video, I'll walk you through exactly how I made this poetry book cover. So what did I do first? First, you have to think of like, what's the essence of the book? And the essence of this particular poetry book that I published, it's a poetry book, a collection of my songs accompanied to music, and it's kind of poetry and dreamy. So the idea of the cover was supposed to be something like that, right? So what I did was I went to pixabay.com, which we're going to go to together now, and I searched for something like dreamy, magical images. Let's do it now just to see how I did this research. This is Pixabay. It's basically a website where you get free stock images, and I searched for something like dreamy. I just wanted something imaginative, things like this. You know, I could have easily used this kind of a cover, although this is too much for kids, right? So you have to go through many images and find something cool. Like, I think this could have been a cool idea for a cover. Like, you know, it's something that's a little bit ethereal. Like, you know, poetry, it's like takes you away to a different world and into a dreamland, something like this. And so I browsed a bunch of these. This could have been a great basic background for a cover. Maybe it's a little bit too uninteresting, too little going on, but that's the idea. It could have been this cool image or the middle of it. It could have been something like this. Although none of these so far exactly hit the spot. Like, for example, if I click on this, like, you know, there's this woman, she's kind of I don't know what she is. Is she like a cartoon character or a fantasy character? That doesn't perfectly fit with my book, and the bell doesn't kind of perfectly fit with my book. So I left it, and I kept on looking and looking and looking until I found that kind of a woman that is currently in my book cover. And I don't know how I found her. I think I did a bunch of different searches. Like, this is a really beautiful image, right? Even though a book cover would only be half of this because it's vertical, but this is really pretty. Could have been kind of the background, a really nice background. But the reason I also chose a woman, and she's specifically looking at the screen, is because I think this makes a human connection. Like, this woman, if you're on Amazon as a customer and you're searching for books, she makes eye contact with you, and it's a little bit more engaging. So basically, I took this image, and I'll show you what I did. I went to Canva. Canva.com is a free and popular image editing software, and I have an account. You would just make a free account. Once you're in, you would say create a design on the top right, and it will let you create a custom size design. And the Kindle tells you, KDP, they tell you what the pixels are. We'll go there now just so you can see where to find this information. If you're uploading a book or editing, like for example, I'm going to edit, I'm going to select to edit the content. And one of the parts of the content is the cover, and it will tell you what the cover dimensions are supposed to be. So you see this link, see our cover guidelines, and they tell you what the dimensions are. So they literally tell you the height is 2560 pixels and the width is 1600 pixels. Now this is for the Kindle. If you want also to print a paperback edition of the cover, it will be a little different because you have to also create the back flap and the middle part of the book. But we're not doing that just because it's the same process as we're doing now, just different dimensions. So what I wanted to do is show you exactly how to do this. So you on Canva and you just select the image dimensions that you're told by KDP. Very simple. And you can see my designs are here. So I'm going to click on this design that I made, and we're going to go through how I made it. you see I took an image. This is the background image of this woman. But notice I put some notes. That's another image I took from Pixabay. And I put that image here. That image wasn't part of the painting. I took this little boat. This boat wasn't part of it. I took the clouds. I added little tiny elements. They're all images I downloaded from Pixabay. And I just thought, whoa, like a ship on the clouds. It's kind of also dreamy. Some feedback that I got was that it's not people's favorite. Some people said that it would have been better without these. And then all I did was add text. This is text. You see the title and my name, the author name, and the subtitle. It's all just text that you would add here. You see on top there's all these options for editing text. And then you download, and then you have options for how to download. You want to download it as a JPEG so that you can upload it as a cover. And really, this is it. Like literally, this is it. So the background, it looks like a beautiful painting that somebody would have done for you in Photoshop if they were like a professional image editor or book cover editor. But really, I just took this entire background, like the clouds, the woman, the railroad. That's one image that I downloaded from Pixabay. And this was the original image. You see how I zoomed in on this woman a little bit, and I had to do that because the dimensions were not allowing me to take the whole painting. But basically, I just stuck it as the background, and I cut a little bit of the left side, a little bit of the right side, a little bit of top, just to trim it enough to fit the dimensions of the Kindle. And that became the basic background of my cover, which looks like, probably I hired somebody, but really I did this myself in a few minutes, just like you see here. So that's also how you can create your own book cover for free without spending any money. So congratulations, we are at the end of the course, and since this is the last video of the course, I want to invite you to read some of my poetry. If you liked some of the examples I showed you in the course of things I wrote, here's my poetry book, and it's on Amazon. It's very cheap, as you can see. It's 99 cents on the Kindle, so it's the cheapest it can possibly be, and you would find it literally by either clicking on the link in the resources of this video, or if you just search for poetry book with songs, and all you have to do is just look for a book with my name, or this is the one with the woman there, and you click on that one, and this is my book by Alex Kindinik. It has my name there, and this is the cover at the moment. I may change the cover, but right now I like this cover, so it seems like it will stay. This book has my poetry, but with every poem is a link to how that poem sounds as a song. So in this book, there are links to my YouTube channel. So for example, on YouTube, this is my YouTube channel, and you can see I have a number of songs, and all of them have some poetry associated with them, either poetry that I translated from the poet that I liked, or my own originals. But the cool thing is that every poem is to a song. And if you don't want to pay for the book, you can just go to my YouTube channel and browse the songs. Hopefully you like some of them. Hopefully the poetry in them speaks to you. But actually, if you want to have a more interactive, immersive, unique experience, you can get the book and read the poetry as you're listening to the music to see if the music really opens up the poetry and gives it a new life. And I'll have the links to this book and to my YouTube channel in the resources of this video, so you can easily go and take a look at both and see what you prefer to do, either the 99-cent option or the free option. Of course, it also helps me, and I'd appreciate it if you get the book, because I'm trying to grow this book on Amazon at the moment. So if you liked the course, if you appreciate the learning, this is also something that directly would help me if you got the book and perhaps left a review on it, etc. Because those things really help authors. So that's something I'll leave you with. And of course, also make sure on your end, write all the time, practice, 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 read the greats. And in this case, I'm not saying read my stuff, but read the greats, the Shakespeares, the other poets, get inspiration from them. And then with that inspiration, create something really beautiful for other people who are next and who are hopefully going to read your poetry. So with that, thank you again for taking the course.